The emergence of the monstrous in time, um, a palliative for the age when the sciences presenting themselves as wise um, go back to the formless chaos at the foot of being and ask, how is it that emerged out of this formlessness meaning? And then they produce the theory of emergence. In a time when we have no answer to who is the one who is doing the science, we could ask how. We could ask the how questions, but not who questions, and yet it's the who that very much determines everything. So now let's look at this question again. I would say there's an analogy on the question of universal human rights. So we all know Alain de Benoit, a close ally of French ally of Dugin, has produced quite a bit on this subject, and one of his remarks is that in the Kenyans and I think in Abu Dhabi, there was produced the universal human rights code of the Africans and the universal human rights codes of Islam. And so this raises n number of questions, infinite questions, Faustian hurling of thunderbolts, something totally destructive. We have already, once we enter into this type of question of the genuine individual, very difficult ground. So what I want to bring out is, if we follow Nietzsche, there's a kind of pushing of individualism to its logical conclusion in the metaphysical individual, so that one can look at it this way. In Goethe's time, one could speak of culture, and mean basically, if you say somebody's refined, and then it's just assumed what it means to be refined, like that the members of the family of the Kaiser Wilhelm the second were in some way more refined than the members of the family of the former Junker become first, or Prince Bismarck. I suppose Bismarck, I don't understand actually how that works. I suppose he was still a Junker, but he was a Junker who had become the prince out of the Junkers, or the more intelligibly put, the prime minister, who operated on behalf of the Kaiser, who handled the affairs of the Kaiser and of state. And somehow was the last to successfully sort of fend off and to identify, as later you see in J. Edgar Hoover, the communism as a way of life, which was like a disease that had to be somehow treated. But in the case of Bismarck, he treated it by making a deal and saying, okay, we'll have the the state social safety net, and thereby we'll inoculate ourselves against the demand for the full socialism, which would be a terrible dictatorship, and we couldn't accept that because it would remove, it would destroy the aristocratic culture, which was taken to be the true culture. Against this, after Goethe's time, culture ceased to be just referred to an obvious finding and refining towards a metaphysical escape velocity. Instead, it started to more and more veer towards what eventually came to pass, where there was cultures, and each of the cultures was somehow different but equal. But likewise, so thinking that way, let's make an analogy on the individual and show what is the metaphysical individual rather than the atomized individual or some other kind of individual. The full push into the individual starts by saying, yeah, the individual only refers to one being, which is the perfect being, which is then which is the figure of eudaimonia. So Aristotle has said, there's probably things that can't be taught, but we could try to imitate them. And then if you see this full being, just imitate the way they are. So that just imitatio Christi. But before the imitatio Christi, there was the imitatio Socrates, if you like. And this is still with us. So this is examples of the individual, and then Zarathustra is an example of the individual. But when you have individualism, that's the same as no longer the one culture, the one refinement. Everybody is this post-Malowalski, post-Boas version of the end of. Just as the cultures are so-called personality writ large, as Ruth Benedict called it, the writ small are these individual personalities, and then if each one is according to their own art for art's sake version, rather than art for the sake of the good, agathon, or for the good of the integral whole, then or the organic whole, maybe, to bring it into connection with this notion of the ethnos as an organic whole. This full notion of the metaphysical individuals, plural, comes into play, and I don't know, in a way that's like the striving of the artist. But we always think of, even in the case of Van Gogh, that it's not. He's still at the level of Van Gogh, but even also in the Balzac story that Picasso liked, it's sort of like there's the image in that story of a Parisian painter who paints something and then nobody else can understand it. They haven't had the inner experiences that go along with that kind of painting, and so when they look, they just see something very banal, very boring, and actually not anything at all, I think. They see just openness. And then I think not being understood, the painter burns down his studio and everyone's killed or something. But this story still, it's within this horizon. It's not within the horizon of the full individual. So I think actually my claim would be it's first Heidegger that's really seen this complete question of how pressing as a matter of Schuld, as a matter of holding the concept of Schuld in existence by saying we have to make this decision, is this very split of the, if one would become simply unintelligible as against, in order to stay with one's vision, sort of like the artist striving as against a society in order to maintain a certain vision. And then there's the question of sort of where the limit would be there, or rather than staying with intelligibility, But I think in either case, that has something to do with the question of Nietzsche's atheism of the right. He thinks within this atheism or nihilism, put more strongly, there's still something like the figure of Zarathustra could be found as a individual who's somehow so infinitely more guiding, more like the lightning bolt of Zeus showing the cosmos than anything else, that it could it would be thus at a higher level than something like Wagner. It would be a higher level at something like music that people merely like. It would be up where it's simply convinced.